a human friendship ritual. I'm going to speak with him. No, you aren't. Alex didn't even look up from his data slate as he reached over and grabbed his Truxian friend and pulled him back down into his seat, preventing him from making his way over to the increasingly loud human getting drunk across the bar. Is your enjoyment not also being dampened by this man's verbal ejaculations? The human's face scrunched up at his friend's particular choice of words, but he was mostly used to it by now. The translators weren't perfect, and sometimes words in other languages just didn't have an equivalent, so they substituted the most literally accurate phrases. Shouting, we call that shouting, and yes, it's annoying, but you are not the right person to be confronting him about it. And why is that? Because the guy's had a bad day, is practically begging for someone to call him out so he can take out his frustrations, and you faint at the thought of a nosebleed. He wouldn't dare. This is an upstanding establishment with an excellent reputation. Fighting on the grounds would only end with his incarceration. Alex finally looked over at his friend and smirked, resting his cheek on his fist. Truxian was from a very orderly and mild-mannered race who held the law in high regard and could hardly imagine going against established rules in a fit of emotional outburst. Grabbing his beer, he got to his feet and gestured for Truxian to follow, taking the most direct route to the belligerent human while staring directly at the guy. By the time they made their way over, the man had already taken notice and was anticipating the confrontation. Someone finally got some balls in this place. Not sure why you brought that stick figure with you, unless you're planning on swinging him at me. Even then, I'm pretty sure he'd shatter on impact. Oh, he's not fighting. He's here to count to 10 after I knock your ass out in the lot. Maybe call emergency services too, depending on how stubborn you want to be about it. Come on out if you got the balls. I don't want you tripping over a stool in here and using it as an excuse when you wake up. Truxian, hold my beer. Truxian stared dumbfounded at his companion as he skipped any form of pleasantries or negotiations for the man to lower the volume of his voice, and jumped straight to antagonization. The growing red hue on his face at each inflammatory statement definitely showed the provocation was working, and before he knew it, Truxian was left holding Alex's beer while the two humans walked towards the exit, already shoulder-checking each other along the way. The first punches had already been thrown before his shock faded, and he scrambled to get to the door before it was choked with other curious patrons. Alex was bleeding from the lip, and the other human was favoring his left side, clearly having taken a hard shot there himself. Alex hadn't been joking when he made the quip about Truxian's sensitivity to seeing blood, and the gangly alien dropped unconscious almost on the spot upon seeing the blood. When he next opened his eyes, he was back in the booth he and his friend had occupied at the beginning of the night. But while Alex was once again beside him, they weren't alone. The loud man was sitting across the table, and he and Alex were in the middle of an arm wrestling match, each throwing out playful taunts between grunts of exertion. Both men were bandaged and bruised, but any blood had been covered or cleaned, so there was no fear of Truxian having another fainting spell. It still didn't make him any less confused at how the men had gone from savagely beating each other to friends. Is this how humans made friends? It certainly hadn't been how Truxian and Alex had begun their friendship. What happened? The alien was still disoriented on top of being confused, and now wasn't even sure if the events before being rendered unconscious had even happened. He didn't think he'd drunk all that much, but none of this made sense, so it was the only thing that made any kind of sense. "Hey, TRX, you're awake? Welcome back, buddy. This guy right here, who's about to lose for the second time tonight, is Roger." "Ha ha ha. I must have hit you harder than I thought if you think I lost our little scuffle. Maybe I should let you win this, to make up for the brain damage." "Oh, is that going to be your excuse when I pin your hand to this table you let me win? Go ahead, take the second L of the night. If it makes you feel better, I won't complain." The men continued to banter until Alex finally lost the match, and they both burst out laughing, only lowering their volume after being shot a look by the bartender. Roger took a swing of his beer and pressed the cold glass against his bruised cheek as he looked over at Trixayan. "Sorry about the whole fainting thing. My ex had a friend who had the same thing. She saw a drop of blood and boom out like a light. Though maybe your buddy here should have had a bit thicker skin." Big words from a guy who I'm pretty sure is nursing a cracked rib. Might want to get checked out for internal bleeding. Hey, who cares about a bit of internal bleeding? That's where the blood's supposed to be. You didn't pass basic biology, did you? Truxian just kept looking back and forth between the two as they spoke until he simply accepted that he wouldn't be able to wrap his mind around how things had turned out this way, and was just happy that no one ended up getting arrested. All of this was just too much to take in, so he just let his forehead rest on the cool table while the newly bonded humans continued to enjoy the rewards of whatever absurd friendship ritual they had underwent. Offer's name and the links to original text in the description. If you like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay with us.